I mean to let her know her mistake. I told you to make weapons, Taim. Show me just how deadly they are. Disperse the Shido. Break them. As you command. If Taim had been stiff before, he was stone now. Put my standard up where they can see it, Rand commanded. At least that would tell everyone outside who held the camp. Maybe the Wise Ones and Two Rivers folk would pull back when they saw that. Loyal's ears wriggled uneasily, and Perrin grabbed Rand's arm as Taim walked away. I saw what they do, Rand. It's... With his bloody face and bloody axe, he still sounded disgusted. What would you have me do? Rand demanded. What else can I do? Perrin's hand fell away, and he sighed. I do not know. I do not have to like it, though. Grady, raise the banner of light, Taim called, and the power made his voice boom. On flows of air, Jer Grady lifted the crimson banner out of a surprised Dobrain's hand and raised it all the way through the hole in the top of the dome. Fire burst around it, and lightning flashed as brilliant red lifted amid the smoke billowing up from the burning wagons. Rand recognized a number of the men in black coats, but he knew only a few names aside from Jer's. Damer and Fedwin and Eben, Jahar and Torville. Of those, only Torville wore the dragon on his collar. Asha'man! Form line of battle! Taim boomed. Black-coated men rushed to place themselves between the barrier and everyone else. All of them except Jer and those watching Aes Sedai. Except for Nesun, who peered intently at everything, the tower lot had sunk listlessly to their knees, not even looking at the men who had them shielded. And even Nesun still looked on the point of sicking up. The Salidar group stared coldly at the Asha'man guarding them for the most part, though now and then they turned those icy eyes on Rand. Alana stared only at Rand. His skin was tingled faintly, he realized. For him to feel it at that distance, all 9 must be embracing Saidar. He hoped they had enough sense not to channel. The stony men facing them held Saidin to bursting, and they looked as tense as the warders fingering their swords. Asha'man! Raise the barricade 2 spans! At Taim's command, the edges of the dome rose all around. Surprised Shido, who had been pushing at what they could not see, stumbled forward. They recovered instantly, a black-veiled mass surging forward. But they had time for only a stride before Taim's next shout. Asha'man! Kill! The front rank of Shido exploded. There was no other way to put it. Cotton-sword-clad shapes burst apart in sprays of blood and flesh. Blows of Saidin reached through that thick mist, darting from figure to figure in the blink of an eye. And the next row of Shido died, then the next, and the next, as though they were running into an enormous meat grinder. Staring at the slaughter, Rand swallowed. Perrin bent over to empty his stomach, and Rand understood fully. Another rank died. Then Dara put a hand over her eyes, and Sulan turned her back. The bloody ruins of human beings began to make a wall. No one could stand up to that. Between one blast of death and the next, the Shido in front were suddenly struggling the other way, forcing themselves back into the mass, fighting to get forward. The milling tangle itself began to explode. And then all of them were falling back. No, running. The rain of fire and lightning against the dome faltered. Asha'man! Taim's voice rang out. Rolling ring of earth and fire! Beneath the feet of the Shido nearest the wagons, the ground suddenly erupted in fountains of flame and dirt, hurling men in every direction. While bodies still hung in the air, more gouts of flame roared from the ground, and more, in an expanding ring all the way around the wagons, pursuing the Shido for 50 paces, 100, 200. There was nothing but panic and death out there now. Spears and bucklers were cast aside. The dome above stood clear, except for the smoke rising from the burning wagons. Stop! The roar of explosions swallowed Rand's shout, as well as it did men's screams. He wove the flows Taim had used. Stop it, Taim! His voice crashed like thunder over everything. One more ring of eruptions, and Taim called, "Asha'man! Rest!" For a moment, a deafening silence seemed to fill the air. Rand's ears rang. Then he could hear screams and moans. Wounded heaved among the piles of dead. And beyond them, the Shido ran, leaving behind scattered clusters of Siswayaman and maidens with red armcloths, Karienen and Mayenners, some still on their horses. Almost hesitantly, those began to move forward toward the wagons, some of the Aiel lowering their veils. With power enhancing his eyes, he could make out Ruark, limping, one arm dangling, but on his feet. And well beyond him, a large group of women in dark bulky skirts and pale blouses, with an escort of men in Two Rivers coats carrying longbows. They were too far for him to make out faces, but from the way the Two Rivers men at least were staring at the fleeing Shido, they were as stunned as anyone else. A great sense of relief welled up inside Rand, though not enough to still the distant churning in his stomach. Min had her face pressed against his shirt. She was weeping. He smoothed her hair. "Asha'man." He had never been more glad of the void-draining emotion from his voice. "You have done well. I congratulate you, Taim." He turned away so he would not have to see the carnage anymore, hardly hearing the cheers of Lord Dragon and Asha'man that thundered from the black-coated men. When he turned, he found Aes Sedai. Arana was all the way at the back, but Alana stood almost face-to-face with him, beside two Aes Sedai he did not recognize. "You have done well," the square-faced one of the pair said. A farmer with an ageless face and eyes just holding on to serenity, ignoring the Asha'man around her. Obviously ignoring them. "I am Bera Harkin, and this is Karuna Nachiman. We came to rescue you, with Alana's aid." That was an obvious addition, at Alana's sudden frown. "Though it seems you had small need of us. Still, intentions do count, and—" "Your place is with them," Rand said, pointing to the Aes Sedai shielded and under guard. 23, he saw, and Galena not among them. The buzzing of Luz Theron swelled, but he refused to listen. Now was no time for insane rages. Karuna drew herself up proudly. Whatever she was certainly no farmer. "You forget who we are. They may have mistreated you, but we—" "I forget nothing, Aes Sedai," Rand said coldly. "I said 6 could come, but I count 9. I said you would be on an equal footing with the Tower emissaries, and for bringing 9 you will be. They are on their knees, Aes Sedai. Kneel." Coldly serene faces stared back at him. He felt Asha'man readying shields of spirit. Defiance grew on Karuna's face, on Bera's, on others. 24 black-coated men made a ring around Rand and the Aes Sedai. Taim appeared as close to a smile as Rand had ever seen him. "Kneel and swear to the Lord Dragon," he said softly, "or you will be knelt." As stories do, the tale spread, across Cairhien and north and south, by merchant train and peddler and simple traveler gossiping at an inn. As stories do, the tale changed with every telling. The Aiel had turned on the Dragon Reborn and killed him at Dumai's wells or elsewhere. No, the Aes Sedai had saved Rand al'Thor. It was Aes Sedai who had killed him. No. Gentled him. No. Carried him to Tar Valon, where he languished in a dungeon beneath the White Tower. Or else where the Amaryllis Seat herself knelt to him. Unusually for stories, it was something very close to truth that was most often believed. On a day of fire and blood, a tattered banner waved above Dumai's wells, bearing the ancient symbol of Aes Sedai. On a day of fire and blood, and the One Power. As prophecy had suggested, the unstained tower, broken, bent knee to the forgotten sign. The first 9 Aes Sedai swore fealty to the Dragon Reborn, and the world was changed forever.